why do you call the honeybee the true permaculturalist? I mean, the permaculturalist.
Whoa. That's why I'm saying. I think that's why we created permaculture, because it's like they are senior to us in that in permaculture.
The bees know more about permaculture.
They're the teacher, we're the student.
And what have you learned from them?
The hair in my nose is making me sneeze.
That's what you learned from them?
You never seen them brushing their antennas?
Yeah.
When I see them do that, I think they're like getting ready to sneeze.
Pop
Kind of
quiz.
like when you rub your nose, you know, like you're about to come.
How many sections of does each antenna have on a honeybee?
69?
No.
4?
No.
You win.
11.
Weird.
And each section has a specialized job.
Oh.
And they all do different things, but they're all to do with, vibrations and sensory and smell and all that stuff. Yep, 11 little sections, all connected.
Yeah, you seen that thing that say like the flower is emitting a radar to the bee, and the bee
Yeah. Yeah, what is
and
that?
There's an auditory thing that you can clip those things like that. People did that thing with the mushrooms so you can hear what they sound like.
Yeah.
And they do that with the flowers. And the flowers change when you smell them. They change when a bee is on approach. Like
if the flower sees a bee, it will turn on its vibratory potency of like, I'm over here.
So then what is, like you were saying, the chicken drinks the water, poops, fertilizes the ground, scratches and collects beetles and larvae from the earth that might eat your plants otherwise. What's the bee's purpose in the permaculture?
Pollinate your crops. Higher yield.
More fruit, more abundance.
And then you get the byproduct, which is the wax,
honey,
and all the high products, which in and of itself is your medicine box.
And they seem to attract predatory insects. So if you're actually trying to grow vegetables, the predatory insect that might, like a dragonfly, might come after one of your bees, but your bees are refreshing, thousands a day, but
it's gonna get your aphids and your worms,
your tomato worm.
Yeah. So you're attracting predatory insects that will kill the pests in your garden. So there's another stacking function.
They'll eat some of your bees, and then there's that beekeeper that tries to, kill all the goddamn wasps and also grow a garden. But they're using 7 dust and Roundup in their garden.
Right.
But then their bees have to forage in their garden.
Yeah, so we want less work.
Inoculate their hive with
So we're just going to keep bees. So that we don't have to spray our garden.
It's all inverted. Yeah. So then what is, like, what's the modality to get the bees to your property?
Swarm.
Maybe.
Traps.
Swarm lures. I don't like traps. I don't
like
that word.
Yeah, the word trap is
a little bit foofy like that.
All right, let's go with lure.
Swarm lure. Because you're trapping it. Like, what are you?
Trapper.
Fur trapper or some shit.
All right, so we're gonna set swarm lures and catch wild bees.
All you're doing is creating habitat to invite them.
Yeah, like you see the mason bee habitats nowadays. You're creating a honeybee habitat so you can get your bees for free from the wild.
And a landscape like you're referring to is definitely inviting to foragers.
And you...
but it's an interesting thing. A lot of people try to put whole frames of honey in their swarm lure.
Oh, and they lure everything under the sun.
Yeah, and the bees never seem to want to move into that.
Yeah, so don't do that.
But then you can attract bees to your landscape by offering food, but not that kind of food. You know,
Exactly.
a diversity of floral nectar sources, pollen sources, but not high concentration. They don't want to swarm into the food court. They want to swarm into the house down the street from the mall. So I found when you bait the swarm lure with old brood comb, chunks of propolis, even like wax moth cocoon material, it just seems like there's better retention. Like you've seen all those bees flying around in the barn, all that old one where it's all like the one stack in the back, it's all wax mothed. I need to clean that out.
Well, it makes it feel homey, lived in and homey.
Yeah, they don't want the brand new construction row house, cookie cutter thing, no yard. You can reach from your left hand to your right hand, touch two houses at the same time.
No.
They want to be in that like cozy old lived-in log cabin at the edge of town.
Well, think about what they are used to in the wild, in nature.
Yeah, before
they're living in a tree hollow that's been lived in by thousands of friends for thousands of years. Or like
when I caught bees out of building, literally every fourth one, there's an old paper wasp nest adjacent, like substantial, or
they're
an old
used to
bird's
living
nest.
symbiotically with hundreds of other creatures.
It's almost like, like there's partitions all around the house, but they picked the one that someone else had lived in before, They don't want the untested spot.
There you go.
I mean, also,
there's
I guess
some
it's
lessons
access.
from the hive.
Yeah, there's access, like maybe that, the nail that popped on the other side of the house just wasn't, the hole it left wasn't large enough for them to move through. They need, 3/8 inch, but I think like 5/8 inch is optimal. An entry really not big. Too big of an entrance, I think, is not as appealing to them.
No. They need an entrance that they can guard easily.
Exactly. And that's another thing I found. You take like 1/2 inch hardware cloth, like the galvanized wire, make a little vestibule out of it, like a net, like you see a net that you would catch butterflies in, but the holes in the net are 1/2 inch, but make it out of wire, and then you place that over the entrance. This way, it deters birds and things from moving in.
Birds?
Yeah, because a bird will move into little birds. If they can fit through that hole, they'll move in there.
Oh, wow.
The wire won't keep wasps and stuff out, but it'll keep rodents and
larger creatures.
Yeah. That way, you can just leave it up, because a lot of people will place their lures out seasonally. But I feel like that's a disadvantage. Again, if you're looking for the old, well-built, lived-in home,
you want to keep it out.
Yeah. But if it goes away every October, it doesn't appear again until March. If I'm looking for long-term digs, that's not it.
Yeah, exactly.
So build it to last and leave it there. But you have to do these couple of things so that you can achieve that.
Yeah, and what else can you do besides having a well lived in with brood comb frames and with a good size, medium to small size entrance? Okay, tell us what not to do.
A lot of people will tell me, "Oh man, I've been trying to catch swarms for years. I can't catch them out." And I ask how they have it set up, and this is what they have: brand new plastic foundation.
Wow.
5 frames of it in a 5-frame deep nucleus size box. So it's a deep box that holds 5 frames. But think about that. Like, would you want to move into a house? It was, it's roomy, we'll say. It's 20,000 square feet. But inside it's partitioned into, 3x3 rooms. The entire structure is 3x3 rooms.
It would be creepy.
Well, yeah, you got no room to work.
Yeah.
Where are you going to draw your comb? Where are you going to put your drone comb in relation to your brood comb so that you can cycle the drones out as the season ends, backfill with your fall nectar, and then encapsulate the last remaining worker brood in this, honey blanket? If every, half an inch you got a sheet of plastic, that's not, the bees want to be in the roundhouse with a central fireplace, no walls. What we give them, well-intentioned as we are, is an office cubicle building, and they just won't move into it because it's not got no room for them to work. That plastic foundation looks in our eye like it would be beneficial to them, but they don't see that. I mean, you goop it down with beeswax and do all the things you can to try to hide it from them, but they know. So
avoid plastic.
Well, avoid things like that.
Avoid squares.
If you have plastic, but it's already got fully drawn brood comb on it,
it will probably work better then.
Then it's not a liability as much. But what I would do if I was using that instead of foundationless, drawn comb. You really want drawn comb in there, because if you have an empty box and they hit it and they pull comb from every which way, you're not going to be able to transfer them out that box, and that's just going to be the end of it. But I would take the piece of drawn comb, plastic foundation or not, and set it in there, and then have it flanked by empty frames, foundationless frames, because that'll give them a guide. It's way more likely. There's like an 85% probability they're going to draw straight enough comb if you have a good,
especially if it's in the center, right?
Yeah, or offset. Yeah, you can be one away from the end, or like you say, dead center. It doesn't have to be right in the middle. Ideally, I'll throw thumbtacks or some other kind of thing to hold those frames in position. So that if they get bumped around, you don't have that one frame turned, 30 degrees. Because then they're going to draw cross comb across the empty frames.
And so, what would you say is the peak time for our region?
What region?
For
the Mid-Atlantic region.
Yeah, for swarm, like the peak. Or would you say from early April to July?
I would leave it up year round, and here's why.
Oh yeah, but to be checking to see.
Oh yeah, the highest probability is going to be when your nectar is at your honey flow is at max. So I've seen that mid-May is where it's busting at the seams. Locust, poplar, all this stuff's happening. There's mature drones. It's warm enough. You're way past last frost. Dangerous. Abundance is everywhere. That's when they start procreating. They also get honeybound then too. So there's all these triggers for reproductive activity. But you can still catch some swarm from some person who's overfeeding their bees in the dearth, September swarm, August swarm, because they're still getting built out. You could argue that it'll be less quality bees, but you might be catching the same bees then as you would in May.
Yeah, and going back to permaculture, try and keep your swarm lure in your zone 1 or 2, so that you can be checking it and it's not just forgotten and left in the woods.
What is that? Zone 1, 2? What do you mean?
So in permaculture, you place your.
There's a map.
Your things, yeah, like a map. You create the landscape around zones. So a zone 1 is somewhere that you're visiting and seeing every single day, every day. And a zone 2 is once a week, twice a week, and then it goes out and out now into places where you don't have to visit at all. If you just planted a new orchard of fruit trees that aren't going to do anything for 10 years, that would probably be in your farthest away zone. They don't need a lot of effort in the beginning. But I like to have not only the bees, but the swarm lures, but also the bees in your zone 1, so every single day you can check on them and see what's going on around them and outside the hive.
Yeah, I get that. There's other things I would say potentially consider, if that's a high traffic area because you're there frequently,
Right.
or your guests, or you're away on vacation and you have some friend doing a trade to pick your veggies while you're gone and they're not accustomed to bees. So sometimes, definitely, if you're learning to work with bees, you need to have them where it's easy for you to access, but also be mindful of the civilian population. I remember I had this top bar on the front porch, and the UPS guy tried to deliver and had to take pause. So.
Yeah, finding a good balance.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
I think you're on the exit. Is that?
There's a good middle of the road.
And then, so when you were talking about all of the signs.
Oh.
No, well,
I'll just hit that real quick. For me, the most success I have is in the vertical orientation. So 5 deep frames, under 5 deep frames, or like 2 or 3 warrays that are like 4 or 5 inches depth stacked on top of each other. Whatever that is, seems to work really well for me.
Because it mirrors nature, and the tree hollow is a vertical orientated.
Rough on timber in the interior.
Oh yeah, they'll love that.
Poplar even, as opposed to pine, but all of it will work, especially old, well-lived-in equipment.
And back to when you said all the triggers to their reproduction, like the nectar flow and the honey bound and all that. So I guess going back, just like some plants, the bees reproduce in 2 ways. The queen lays the individual worker bees, but then also they cast swarms, so the whole colony duplicates. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I guess the better way to look at it is just like your body develops and grows, you shed things, you add things, muscle mass, etc. That's the individual bees. The worker bee, the drone bee. They'll make more worker bees in the spring, more drone bees in the spring as fall approaches. They'll reduce both, but they'll reduce the drone population to almost 0 because they're not in the reproductive mindset. They're not in the communal mindset. They're going into the rest state, hibernation or whatever, fasting. And so they'll thin them out. And so that's an ebb and a flow. When they're swarming, they're doing colony-wide reproduction, they'll make a bunch of queens to head up the swarm-issuing colony. I've seen virgin queens leave with the mated queen. I've picked out 5, 6 queens from a swarm. But then the whole goal of all of that is to have a colony-wide reproductive action, so that mated queen and a retinue of worker bees leave with her. And I've seen drones in the swarm too. And then they end up going into a hole somewhere and starting anew, leaving everything that they built up behind.
That's what's fascinating is they don't go immediately to their new home. They separate themselves from the original colony with the old queen. Unless, there's the exceptions that you mentioned that probably happen more than often than not.
Yep, but no one's looking for it.
But they swarm in a temporary area while they have a democratic decision-making process based on what the scouts find and the information they bring back to that swarm that's hanging from the tree. Or they have this 1 to 4 day. Usually, it's about a day. Time where they're in limbo. They don't have their old home, they don't have their new home. That's the swarm. And then they vote and based on what the scouts find, and then they go move into their new home and start over. And you're getting a replica of that initial colony. And so a lot of mainstream beekeepers don't like swarm. They don't want their bees to swarm. Can you talk about that?
Well, yeah. It's this weird scarcity mindset thing I mean, honestly, that's what got me into bees, the scarcity mindset. But then again, they showed me the abundance. Like I said, I think they're the real permaculture master. But people are conditioned through like the conventional beekeeping education models that if your bees swarm, you lose your bees. If your bees swarm, it's a danger to the community and all of these things.
It's actually a hygienic expression.
Oh yeah, but it's like, if in the same way, like if you had chickens and then you had a broody hen and she was hiding and she did that, and then one day you walk around the corner and you see her with 3 little chicks. Are you mad at her? I was supposed to eat those eggs, damn it. Or are you like smiling ear to ear because you got a level 2 unlock in your homesteader mastery program? Like, that's the same thing. Like, that's how you need to look at a swarm. It's resilience. Now, if you're trying to intensively manage your bees and they are swarming, and that's not what your intention was, then yeah, you've got an opportunity to, retool your protocols. Because, wow, how's that door looking?
It looks shut.
Yeah, that was the test. But anyway, yeah. So.
Well, one thing I think a lot of beekeepers are overlooking is what happens. Okay, since the swarm is a natural expression of the honeybee, Apis mellifera, is just something they do naturally. There's a reason for it, and so they're overlooking all the benefits of the swarm, which a main one I think is that they get a brood break.
Your own individual colony. But yeah, no, I mean, for example, if you're keeping bees in the city on the rooftop, I remember helping with a swarm retrieval one time, and you could see like the panic on the street. This was in Washington D.C., because it was like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man moving through New York. Everyone's running and afraid. Yeah, you need to manage bees if you're going to keep them in that environment and stay ahead of their propensity to swarm by splitting and doing those things. But also, if you do it a certain way, you can also kind of keep the
natural benefits,
the brood break and all these things intact pretty closely. But again, the conventional protocols don't allow for that. But in the natural setting where you're like on like this permaculture homestead or what have you, then you have the room to allow that to take place. You have your swarm lures up, and they might just move into one of them or continue on their way to the place they have in mind. But the thing of it is, it's like a natural process that has several functions stacked into it. So the most obvious one, they're splitting, they're making another colony of bees. They're not absconding, you're not losing your bees, they're procreating. And so there's a whole other colony of bees. If you're observant, you see the signs in the comb. Wet queen cups, a really robust population, good density, lots of food. You can get in front of that and
split.
Assist the process, exactly. But nonetheless, you do that or not, you miss it, and it takes its own course. Now that colony doesn't have an open, active brood nest, and so they go into a brood break. The queen that was laying is gone, and the swarm issuing colony has to make a new one. That is a several weeks process, in which case there's no active brood nest. And so the bees get to, it's almost like, spring cleaning or whatever. I always joke with this thing, having as many children as I have, knowing what I know now, how effective could I be with all the knowledge I've attained from that experience if I didn't have the children at the same time? You see what I mean? Like, so that colony, when it's rearing brood, so many bees has to tend to that brood and check those cells, and check the larvae, and watch for, disease and pests and these things. But during that brood break, none of that is happening. But those same bees are there, the same mature, intelligent organism. So they're running around being extra hygienic, cleaning up all the little bits of debris here, there, and everywhere, packing in a bunch of honey, way more than they would have otherwise, because they're not having to, watch out for their young. So,
a hotel, when all the guests leave and the housekeeping can go in and clean all the rooms.
Really, like the deep clean, not just a quick flip.
Yeah. And then, but imagine day after day after day after day, new guests checking into those hotel rooms with no cleaning whatsoever, or the quickest little clean up. And so that's the difference between a brood break and a hotel guest break and not. And it gives those bees a chance to create a hygienic hive.
Yeah, and then in that gap, the brood is what everything's after. That's what Winnie the Pooh wants. That's what Varroa wants.
So by stifling that brood break, by not allowing that brood break to happen, you're creating prime breeding ground for all the things that you
Varroa,
want.
For example, can increase faster. They'll breed faster than bees. But a hygienic colony will still manage that. But then you leverage that colony's hygienic behavior by letting them or facilitating the reproductive action. I'm not saying let the swarm wander off. Go ahead and do the split. But when you do the split, don't move open brood with the queen, and she never stops laying. Move her, shook swarm, just her and a bunch of bees on a resource frame.
Both of the colonies, the old and the new, need a brood break.
Correct, exactly. But that's what they'll do. They'll take a frame of brood, move it into this box over there, and then shake some bees on that, and a resource frame, and that's their split. And then they'll say, "Well, I didn't notice any brood break benefits." Well, there was just no brood break to have. I mean, I guess technically that frame of brood you moved over will go into a brood break, but if you're doing that in the same apiary that you took it from, there's going to be a lot of drift, so the density of bees managing brood is not going to be there in that, and so it's going to be a vector for disease, because you're basically have it's like babies having babies. You're physically able to do it, doesn't mean you can manage it sustainably. And so the colony you took that from will actually benefit, I guess, in that now they have more bees to brood ratio, but there's still really no brood break to speak of, and so you're not really achieving anything other than potentially splitting the hive, but not in the spirit that would facilitate the brood break and all those periphery benefits